This is She Fascinates Me, a podcast about women who are living with intention, curiosity, and heart. I'm Julie Silber, and in each episode, I'm bringing you conversations with women who inspire fascination in all its forms. Before we dive into this episode, a quick note. Here on She Fascinates Me, we love to explore all things wellness, reinvention, and personal growth. But nothing you hear on this show should ever replace professional medical advice. Always consult your own doctor or qualified health provider before making changes to your health or your health routine. In this episode, I sit down with ADHD consultant Cassie Blakely for a grounding, clarifying conversation about what it really looks like to navigate ADHD. Whether you're parenting a child with a new diagnosis, supporting a neurodivergent family member, or beginning to question your own symptoms in midlife. Well, hello, and welcome to She Fascinates Me. I'm your host, Julie Silber, and today I'm joined by a friend from far away, Cassie Blakely. You're out in California. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Hi. So, my seeing you all over social media promoting what you do to help people with ADHD.
I know. I'm so happy to see you because I'm on Facebook sometimes, but Instagram's kind of been my fun part of this social media, and just in the last couple of years really putting myself out there for ADHD and having my consulting and coaching business and helping families and young adults. So it was so fun when I got your message.
I really wanted women in middle age to get a lot out of this conversation today, because I feel like so many times when we're together socially or playing a sport together or seeing each other at school, there's usually at least one woman in the group who drops a little comment about her adult ADHD. And I happen to be one of them. If you are watching right now, you may be one of those women. And I know you yourself have ADHD. So we are all in good company here on this podcast today.
Woohoo! Go ADHD.
ADHD is awesome, right? So that book, I think I mentioned to you the book, you've started reading it, that the Holdernesses wrote. Yeah. If you don't know who the Holderness family is, they're all over social media. They're so funny. But it's a husband and wife team. They do tons of social media videos, and the husband has ADHD and the wife doesn't. And it's a book with all this adorable banter between the two of them, but it really explains and brings an empathy piece to understanding ADHD if you're not someone who struggles with it.
Yeah, I love how they bring lightness.
Yes.
Because there can be heaviness with ADHD and there can be lightness, and I love that they have a combo of both.
Yeah, it's good because when you're reading the book, you're learning a lot about how it can present in different ways. Like you've said this to me before, ADHD presents totally different for everybody. So there's just so much information out there. It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it really is. And it's changing all the time now that they're doing brain scans and the information. And then what is right for a young adult? What's right for someone who's going through menopause? What's right for a male versus a female? There's just a lot out there to kind of navigate. And I know that I continue to try to figure out what's right for my family. We have 4 ADHDers in our family, and they all present 3 females, 1 male, and we all present very differently.
Let's back up a little bit. When you and I first met, you have the 2 daughters, I have 1 daughter, and our daughters went to a very, very specialized school in Atlanta called the Skank School, SCHENCK. It is such a special place for kids with dyslexia and language-based learning disabilities. Why don't you start by explaining what brought you to Atlanta, because you were not living here at the time and you sought that school out because you're a warrior mom.
I did. And I actually met my husband years ago in Atlanta. So I was a little familiar with Atlanta, but I did not know how wonderful Skank was and how they have incredible specialized schools in Atlanta. And I didn't even realize it. And my sister-in-law really helped us kind of figure out that she had heard about the school. She didn't know much about it. And my older daughter was diagnosed dyslexic. We were living in New York City at the time. And the kiddos at 5 were reading Harry Potter. And we were still reading like See Jane Run. I was a really late reader. I didn't read until 4th grade. And no one had even heard of dyslexia. And I wasn't diagnosed back then. I was only diagnosed after I I had my kids and realized, and then went for a neuropsych. But I had heard about it and I just started doing research, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a school that could help my kiddo feel and celebrate her dyslexia. And we were getting ready to go from New York to California, and we went, whoa, hold on here. She's diagnosed. I researched because that's what I do, and I couldn't find a school that I felt in San Diego was appropriate for her and that would celebrate what she was. Obviously, it was really hard in this private school, and they weren't celebrating that she wasn't reading and trying to figure out. And we had already done so much tutoring, even at 5 years old. So I knew something was going on, and when I heard about it, I just called them up and I basically begged. And they had already, I think, filled the class. And I said, we are willing to move our family there. This is how desperate we are. How about you just meet with us, and at least you could give us resources and tell us what we can do. And I knew at that point my older daughter could get herself in. She has magic around her. And so I just knew it. And that's what happened. And it's really been such a gift for me. And it was where I really started feeling what community looks like, talking about things and topics that maybe other moms weren't talking about. They were talking about, meeting all their developmental needs, and both of my kids did not. And so it was a very lonely road for me.
Well, it totally is. And I was right there with you. My daughter was not reading Harry Potter either at that age, and you feel really left behind. And you kind of, I don't know if you did this, but I questioned myself as a parent at certain points, like, gosh, am I just not doing it enough with her? But certainly when you get that intervention from a psychologist to administer that neuropsych, which is a psychoeducational evaluation, it is a very extensive, comprehensive test. Gosh, I think wasn't it broken up over the course of like 2 days? It was 5 hours of testing. It's a lot for a little one. But it really gets into the nitty gritty of how a child learns and what their strengths are. Thank goodness they focus on the strengths. And then what the deficiencies are that need, remediation or could benefit from remediation. So, I think in that whole process of you doing that deep dive for your daughter and, being immersed in that school setting and then not feeling alone anymore, right? We used to stick that label on it, learning disabilities, and then that kind of evolved into challenges. And I've already heard you say it 2 or 3 times in this conversation. You're freaking celebrating it. And I love that.
And I always say difference. I don't look at it as a disability. I know, we need that diagnosis to be able to get accommodations in certain schools. So I always explain to my kiddos, especially when they were younger, what that meant. But I think it's a celebration. I think it's out of the box thinking. And finally, some schools are really going, hang on, we really want to celebrate this. These are the inventors, the entrepreneurs. So
yes,
it's been fun my oldest daughter's 20, my younger one's 17, and then to really learn about how they process information, again, differently than what I do, but that we all have these learning differences, even my husband in our family, and how that has been to raise them has been quite interesting and such a deep personal journey for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can only imagine, I feel sad for you that you suffered from undiagnosed ADHD as a child. And I'm sure it's very possible that your educators and the adults around you were trying to get you out of that box that you were in and put you in the mainstream box. And that must have been such a struggle and must have taken a big hit on self-esteem and all of that growing up. And so I'm very thankful today for this generation that people are finally realizing that dyslexia and ADHD are what make the world go round. And just like you were saying, these are the creatives and these are the people who are so clever at coming up with workarounds, and therefore they're inventing and they're entrepreneurial. Otherwise, we'd be a really boring world.
It's a superpower. It really is. Now, is it a superpower that has to be managed? In a lot of ways, Absolutely. I deal with that
Yes.
every day. And I think that's why I started doing what I'm doing to help and support other families and young adults. And
Right.
I'm learning along the way. I live this. I know what it feels like. I want to research, and I also want people to not feel alone. It has been and continues to be sometimes a lonely journey for me,
Okay.
with my own uniqueness and how that presents out into the world, and what expectations are put on as a like female and what that looks like and how I'm supposed to be. So it's been really such an internal journey for me, and I've done a lot of work.
Okay. Okay. Well, and you've done a lot of personal work, but then you also did so much work to advocate for your children. And so that's certainly how you've landed today having your business where you're helping families with children with ADHD, but then you're helping young adults. Are you also getting involved helping people like me? For example, I'm 53, just recently discovered probably 2 years ago that I have adult ADHD. Do you
I
help
am.
us?
I am. And
Okay.
especially, I think, with the hormones, I am getting just bombarded, not only for myself, but I'm seeking out so much information on what it looks like with ADHD and perimenopause and menopause, and maybe just discovering that maybe we had some of these symptoms and we just didn't know what they were. And then hormones elevate those and really shine a light on those. And you're going, hold on, what do we do? Who do we go to? Where do we? I'm not feeling like myself. So I'm also kind of branching out because I am dealing with that as well. So I've been meeting with a lot of experts on what that looks like. How do we take care of ourselves? And let's, learn and talk to each other.
Yes. So tell me, how does your Instagram work? What is your goal? I mean, I know, but explain to the viewers and the listeners, what are you doing on social media? What does that look like? And then what is an interaction like when someone meets with you, either virtually or in person, for just a tailored experience, understanding how to navigate ADHD?
Yeah, so I started on social media just trying to educate people. People were coming to me just asking questions of like, wait, is this ADHD? Wait, is this a learning difference? So I just started putting videos out just to educate things that are happening, little things, losing things. Is this ADHD or is this just forgetfulness?
Oh,
Negative
and sorry,
self-hate.
my squirrel brain right now, I should interrupt because that's something that ADHDers do. So
Yes.
sorry, not sorry. We should mention that you're not a doctor. You are a mom
No.
with ADHD, with a household full of ADHD family members who has done the deep dives and met with so many experts. And now you are consulting others. So I just wanted to, early on in our conversation, mention that.
I do have a child development degree, and I love working with families. I don't work with anyone under 21. A lot of people ask me, but I give great referrals for that. But I am trying to work with young adults and families and support them so then they can support their children. I think it is a self journey that's happening a lot. I know for me, that's how I discovered that I had ADHD and dyslexia is through my children's behaviors. So there is
Okay.
a lot that happens within your own self. And so it has for the last 25 years for me been a lot of work. I've done a lot of inner work through therapy, EMDR, lots of workshops. And I wish I would have had a me when my children were born, because I was so overwhelmed and I made a lot of mistakes and I did some things trying to fix because I was told by many specialists that one of my children would not be able to walk or talk by a top neurologist. And
Yeah.
so I went into warrior mode, as I say. And there are people that are selling and they believe, and it's wonderful, but it's not right for all children. And so I think that's what I really try to do is I meet with a lot of overwhelmed humans who are trying
Yes.
to navigate where they should put their energy. Is it into parenting? Is it into nutrition? Is it into therapy? What type of therapy? So when I try to personalize that, what have you done this far? Because that makes a difference. People are throwing out vision therapy. People are taking out loans to do this, and it might not be right for your child. And
Yes.
so I want to know, and you can be diagnosed, you can be not diagnosed, you can just feel like something's off because that intuition, mother's intuition is so it is right on. And I always say, please listen to yourself. Even if a teacher or a doctor is saying, I'm not seeing it, listen to your own intuition.
Sure. That's a very good point that you make. Certainly doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists are doing such thorough examinations, right? But that is in a limited window of time. And at the end of the day, you know your child best, or you know yourself best. And so it is important to listen to that and almost temper it with, the professional advice that you're getting.
Yeah. And I think I always say a dyslexic can see another dyslexic, an ADHDer can see another ADHDer. It's funny, you start to go, oh yeah, no, I can't diagnose anyone, but I love to just give a plan. I am a person that has an overwhelm pattern, and I love to coach and consult in a way that's not overwhelming. I usually will do like a 15-minute free consult. If I'm your person and we click, amazing. If I'm not, I love to move you on to someone else.
Sure, and that feels good to do that too, for sure. Yeah, and I love that you do it that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
it needs to be a right fit. And I think I usually tell families or young adults, choose 3 things that you're challenged with, your top 3 that you're like, I just don't feel like this is working in my life. It can be anything, or 3 things that you're curious about, that you want to learn more about. And then we usually go through those either with themselves or with their children. And a lot has to do with parenting and that challenge or that regulation, because regulation is so key. And what I've learned in especially the last 3 years on regulating myself, how much that regulation goes out into my own family. So this is a personal journey. And we all have reactive behaviors that happen, especially with ADHD. And if you have any trauma or triggers, that can really play a part in how you're reacting and showing up in the world.
Okay. That's interesting. And, it sounds like you've done a lot of personal work when it comes to therapy and certain kinds of treatments for what you have experienced in your life in conjunction with having ADHD and dyslexia. For someone like me, I have sought out therapy before for a fear of flying, but other than that, I haven't. And so for me, it's just a full on ADHD moment that I'm having in my midlife. So let's kind of segue over to that. Because I think, certainly there are so many women who are maybe guessing, or maybe they're thinking, oh, my hormones are just off. What is wrong with me? Why do I keep forgetting things? Talk about that, because I feel like, sometimes women can beat themselves up or be really hard on themselves. But at a certain point, when do you recommend, if you're consulting with someone that, hey, why don't you just go check this out? Maybe this isn't just a monthly thing. I think women have been so conditioned over, teenage years all the way through young adult. Oh, it's just your time of the month or whatever. But then when your hormones go berserk during perimenopause and menopause, you kind of have to pay attention at a certain point. How do you kind of have a dialogue about that?
You do. Well, I try to walk through, okay, where do you think it's showing up? Is it showing up all the time? Is it showing up sometimes? Is it preventing you from doing things that you really want to do? Do you see a change in your personality? And so we kind of talk through it. And then all of a sudden, it always happens, a light bulb moment happens, and they say, this is really playing a bigger part than I want it to be. And when that is happening, and then it's like, all right, let's see, have you been to the doctor? We need to go down the list. Are you regularly getting your blood work done? Do you have hormone, are you on HRT? Have you checked that at all? Are you doing the self-care things medically and going to the right doctors? Because I want to know also, like, do you have anxiety or depression? Is it ADHD? Do you have any diagnosis that can be helpful? So information and being curious about your own mental health and physical health is probably the biggest key, especially at this age.
Okay. Well, and, just as there's more conversation about ADHD than there ever has been before, thankfully, there's so much of a conversation about perimenopause and menopause as well. So if a woman is going to go for one of her annual checkups or some sort of interim checkup with her OBGYN or functional doctor, I almost feel like maybe today it's not being brushed off as easily anymore. The doctors are really, they're more educated in that space now, and they're more open to listen to the symptoms that we might be having and have a more in-depth conversation about, okay, what might be contributing to your lack of focus or your mood changes. Are you running into some people, though, who go to a doctor and do they still feel like they're getting brushed off? Are you hearing about that happening? Oh, that's such a shame.
And it's
Yeah.
so disappointing. And that's why I love to share resources. I think I'm not always the expert. I think the communication, I'm always going to be a student. I always want to learn. I want to be curious. And I think a community of sharing these things, and that's also what I'm trying to do, is let's share our symptoms. Let's talk about it. Let's verbalize it, because there are doctors. So make sure that you are going to a doctor and talking to your friends about, like, hey, who are you seeing? Do you like them? Are they, do they understand perimenopause or menopause? I think sharing those resources is extremely important.
Absolutely. I found myself very happy with a doctor that I switched to about 2 years ago. I had been seeing a male OBGYN, and whenever I would go into his office, I didn't understand what he was talking about when it came to hormones. I just didn't get it. On a previous episode, when I was talking to my friend Landria Voigt, she's a nutritional consultant in a functional medicine practice, and I was telling her how when I would go to that doctor, it was like the Peanuts teacher, wah, 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 wah. I just didn't understand what he was talking about. And so when I found this new doctor, she spent an hour with me. I couldn't believe it. Actually spent an hour with me, and I felt like we accomplished so much in that visit, and she really heard me. So I think having
That's
you,
number one.
when someone has you
That's
in their
number one.
corner, you're definitely going to insist that wherever they're going, make sure you're being heard.
I know insurance and all of that, but there's always a doctor that you feel acknowledged by. And that's really what's, like you said, we just want to be heard. We want to know that our symptoms matter and that we can do something about it to change it if we're not feeling our best. And I love Eastern and Western. I really don't make a choice. I go to so many doctors, not only for this, for my consulting, because I am wanting to know everything or as much as I can right now. So I love to use both. I am in the camp of there is no judgment. I think we can both have a marriage with both. I don't need to choose a side. And so I see lots of doctors and all kinds. I mean, my husband will be like, wait, who are you seeing today? Because I want to get as much information as I can.
Well, and that makes sense for you as a consultant, because not everyone that you're working with is going to be Eastern or Western. It just keeps you well versed in the, for lack of a better word, in the marketplace. And now we'll take a moment for the giving intermission. Don't fast forward. Your karma is watching. For today's giving intermission, I want to shine a light on an organization doing truly meaningful work in the mental health space, Inspiring My Generation. At the heart of their mission is something so important: normalizing the conversation around mental health. Inspiring My Generation creates space for open, honest dialogue by amplifying real stories, sharing trusted information, and providing resources that help remove stigma and promote understanding. One of the most beautiful parts of their work is their encouragement card program. Through handwritten notes filled with love, support, and hope, they reach individuals who are facing mental health challenges, reminding them that they are seen, supported, and never alone. Education is also a cornerstone of what they do. Inspiring My Generation offers tailored workshops for teens, equipping young people with tools for emotional awareness, resilience, and healthy coping skills. They also provide free downloadable mental wellness resources, updated quarterly so individuals and families can continue building their own toolbox for mental well-being. This organization is a powerful reminder that sometimes the most impactful support starts with conversation, compassion, and connection. If you'd like to learn more, get involved, or support their mission, I encourage you to check out inspiringmygeneration.org. So when you do have the opportunity to work with a woman who has been experiencing these ADHD symptoms in midlife, and when she seeks out care, whether it's from her Western doctor or functional doctor, are you able to kind of quantify how soon she reports back to you saying she's starting to notice an improvement? What does that seem to look like in your experience so far?
I always like to give it a month, depending on, because I think that's enough time to practice whatever. So you need, and I also say if you're starting HRT, one thing at a time so you know what and how you feel. I mean, certainly sometimes you have to do two, but really being particular about what you're doing and adding so you know what's working and what's not working. A lot of people like to do monthly check-ins with me, but if they're in, we say crisis mode, even if it's just, a family or whatever, then I'm pretty open and I'm like, I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'll be. Because I really like to personalize whatever I'm doing. And every family, young adult, female, everyone's different on what their schedule looks like and what they're comfortable with. But I usually like to see a month.
Okay. Well, and you're such a sweet person too, Cassie. I almost feel like whomever you're working with has the added benefit of you being like a friend. I mean, if it sounds like if they're touching base with you on a monthly basis or however often, I'm sure those check-ins just feel so warm and like they've got a friend helping them navigate, again, something where they might feel alone. Because I'm sure a lot of women might feel really alone or isolated. For example, for me, I'm on a tennis team. I've got 15 people on my tennis team or so, and there are definitely a handful of us, and we're always kind of cracking jokes about ourselves and our squirrel brain or, oh my gosh, the brain fog or whatever. But I feel very fortunate to be on a tennis team. Let's say there are women out there who don't have as much of a sense of community, and then, wow, she might really feel alone. So having someone like you that they can see frequently on social media or actually get to interact with personally has got to really help with that part. So don't ever change who you are.
I get attached to all my clients, and some of them are now friends, and the families. I truly do care because I feel like I was and am on this journey. So the support that I give them, it's kind of a part of myself and what I'm doing and helping myself too. It's that younger version that needed me, even as a child. And so I know I'm doing this to help myself as well. And I just, whatever I can do to help anyone, whatever knowledge I have, I'm always willing to share.
Yeah. I mean, it feels so good, right? When you've dug deep and you've had success coming up with solutions for your family or for yourself, it is so nice to be able to share it and make it a little easier or a lot easier for somebody else. So, and that's just such a driver, I think, for you. And there's a part of me that's that way too. It just feels good to pay it forward and just help make someone's life a little easier. Okay. So transitioning over to embracing it, like they talk about in that book, ADHD is awesome. How do you frame those conversations? Because certainly your conversations can be a little heavy, I'm sure, but I'm sure you're balancing it with saying, hey, look on the bright side, look at the amazing things you're able to do because of your ability to really hone in on what you're passionate about. Maybe expand on some of that.
I just did a talk recently on finding your child's superpower, turning their challenges into superpowers. And I think, and it was younger families. And I think this is something that's just so important. I just think that I was suggesting the other day to a family, they were saying that play dates with 3 and 4 kids and birthday parties is just too much, that their child ended up hitting someone. They were on edge and worried about what the other parents were thinking of them. And it wasn't a good experience for any, the child or the parent. And I said, just do one-on-one. If you have one person that you know, and we get attached to thinking that this is how our life is going to be forever. And it might just be for now. This is what's right for your family now. And that's okay.
Adaptation. Yeah. An adaptation. And
so I think we get stuck in this conversation of like, this is it. I'm going to be lonely forever. My kid's never going to have any friends. And so these challenges they become superpowers. The one-on-one, then that child becomes the leader and they are able to thrive. And then you're able to talk about, okay, another parenting thing that I was just telling a family last week is, okay, so your child's into sports. your child's dyslexic, ADHD. Let's find a person, because now there's a lot of sports and celebrity people that are coming out saying, okay, who is your idol? For us, it's Richard Branson. He's an entrepreneur for my family. So we had pictures of Richard Branson all over our house and saying, yes, he failed out of school in 8th grade, but look what he's invented. So it's finding those people that your family can be relatable to, that have had successes, that are out of the boxes, and making those moments of like, but look at this person. And then having dinner conversations with each other of like, every day I try to say where my stuff shows up. Where's my ADHD showing up? Being vulnerable and talking about those things to our kids so where they don't feel alone, and creating this like team approach. I always say the Blakeleys do it this way. The Blakeleys do it that way. And creating this community, only even if it's just in your little family, that you've got each other's backs.
Sure. But then alternatively, if you are a parent of a child or children with ADHD, but if you yourself don't have it, just learning from you or learning from certain resources out there, whether it's from your doctor or some trusted online resources, how to acknowledge and have that empathy for your children. Because I think in those cases, if you yourself personally can't relate, you might just get frustrated or impatient. And so I'm assuming that you have ways of educating parents who are not ADHD on how to become empathetic.
From Uncle Bob. I mean, they're like, so our Uncle Mike, it's so funny. They're like, we don't have it in our family. And then we start, first of all, I think it's really important to see who in the family, extended family, might have it. It's really important to be able to say, hey, like, we know it's coming from somewhere, or we can relate to them and talk to them. I mean, I have people that their in-laws call me and they're like, I want to know more. I don't understand what this means. I think this is a group, and the more information we can have about how to help support whatever's going on is so important. You don't have to be living in it. It's almost easier. I mean, we all four have all the information, but we all react and have ADHD. And so we can be reactive and trigger and interrupt each other all day long. So it's just having compassion really at the end of the day, and understanding what it looks like, and even wanting to feel like asking questions, being curious. What does this feel like to your child? Or if you're living with someone, whomever it is, being curious about what is this like for you? What is your body? What is your mind doing? Is it not able to stop? I mean, I know for me, I don't show it as much in my body as I do with my self loop. And sometimes that self loop can keep going and it can be negative. And no one would know that I'm having this conversation in my head.
Okay. So a self loop. So that's just like negative self-talk. Yeah.
And you can get stuck on a subject, or you can, with a lot of ADHDers, we interrupt and then we take over the conversation, and then we leave the social setting and we start going, oh my gosh, was I rude? Did I offend that person? Did I interrupt? Did I make it about me? I mean, it's one of my patterns, and it's a big one for a lot of people.
Okay. So you were talking about the superpowers before with children. When we're talking about women in midlife who might be experiencing ADHD, and let's say it's been diagnosed, and hopefully she is doing something about it, whether it's something under the care of a therapist, or something to do with her hormones, or maybe some sort of mental exercises, whatever it's taking to help with that situation. I think it's important for women to identify at that point, okay, what do you like to hyperfocus on? What is your passion? Because that is what I have found just through my own daughter, with the things that she's really good at doing, like cooking, and she knows a ton about cars. She made a deep dive into information about scoliosis because of her own condition. When you identify what it is that really makes you tick, then that focus piece is something you just have to harness, because wow, you're going to have a ton of focus when you identify what you love. And so talk about the superpowers in midlife and how we can kind of channel that, and how it might end up changing your trajectory in midlife.
Yeah, I think it's realizing that we do have this superpower of hyper focus. A lot of people still think that ADHD means you can't focus, and that's just not the case. It's how do we manage our hyper focus, really? Because we do, when we're interested and our frontal lobe lights up and we are interested in something, we go to town. So it's learning how to manage that and stop that. And so you really do. And so I think when menopause, we also are discovering things about ourselves that we're like, wait, I have that opportunity. Maybe our kids are getting older and we have more freedom. And we're like, wait, we can reinvent ourselves. What does that look like? I know that's happening for me. And,
Me too.
not having those limitations. Yeah. And not having those limitations for ourselves of like, wait, maybe I did limit myself before because my focus was raising the children or whatever it was, or my career. I just knew I had to stay in that. But now we might have more opportunities of freedom, of being curious.
Exactly. To listen to whatever that passion is that allows that beautiful extreme focus to happen. Why keep that squashed? I'm really glad that I pursued making this change in my life to have a million different conversations with people each time I sit down in front of the tripod.
Like, let's just start talking about where your values and morals are and how comfortable you are. And let's pick a lane. And then I can really be helpful in what strategy you can use.
Well, sure. And it sounds like, certainly you earlier on mentioned that you do a little bit of both, the Eastern and the Western. And it sounds like you definitely see therapists, but then you also just mentioned some some things that I've never even heard of, like the bat, or did you say a sound bowl? Some things that are just more spiritual. So maybe people are on one side or another or mixed. So you can just put together whatever ingredients list for the plan that feels right for that particular person.
And that's why I like to know before.
Yeah.
And that's like how I want to know before and why I like to do a call. Okay, tell me where your stuff is and I'll tell you if I'm your person. I do have a lot of families and young adults that are like, I am zero, I will not do medication. If you feel this way, that's not okay. I have others who are like, hey, they start and they're like, no medication. And they're like, I think it's time. And so I like to help families figure that out. Is it time? I start to ask questions. Is the child's personality, is your personality changing? Are you, and just asking questions so that they can see, and they say, it might be time. So I love to just do that call initially to see if we're a good fit. But I have families and young adults that feel very strongly one way or the other. And I want to lead them in, I'm not here to put my values on it. I want to lead them the way that's right for them.
I guess I have one last question, because we have our laptops and our phones and our iPads, and now everything's available to stream. There are documentaries. There's so much information everywhere. And that in itself can feel very overwhelming. Do you have any words of wisdom on how to parse through all of that so that you just don't end up being on overload when it comes to, okay, I'm ready to start researching. Where do you like people to begin? And do you have any philosophies on how to process all of that?
Yeah, it's so personalized. I just had to tell a client to get off social media regarding menopause because they were trying too many things and it was making it worse. And I think that's the hard part is there's too much information. It's not personalized. And so we're trying a lot of different things and that's not always helpful. So that's really my philosophy is one thing at a time, especially because our body is changing so much, especially with our hormones. And I really like to say, go to a trusted doctor that you already have an established relationship with and talk about, hey, I'm feeling this way. It feels different for me. These are my symptoms. I'm not feeling like myself. I know for me, I all of a sudden overnight was like, I don't feel like myself. Something's going on. I am more anxious than I've ever been. My ADHD symptoms are showing up even more. I'm feeling a little more depressed. My body is changing. So I went first to a doctor, and that's that I already had an established relationship with. Or ask a friend who you know or someone in that you trust. say, hey, have you had these symptoms? Do you have someone? Because I
Yes.
really think a doctor, or, it can be anyone that you really trust, and tell them about your symptoms.
I think it's a really good suggestion. And then from there, let's say the doctor says to you, okay, why don't we try X or Y or Z? And then you've got some guidelines on kind of where to begin and do your own research. And then you can certainly go back for another conversation. That's what doctors are there for. And that's what the whole self-advocacy piece is. I think we shouldn't feel like we have to keep it to ourselves or brush it off as, oh, you're just a woman, it's just menopause. There are things that can be done. I've noticed a big change in myself. I started taking basically a kindergartner's dose of a drug called Vyvanse, and it helps me with focus. It feels like a couple of cups of tea, and I feel focused, but I don't feel jittery. It doesn't affect my appetite. For me, that has worked. I am not shy about telling people that I take a focus medication. And I'm not saying that people should do that, but it was something that I went to the doctor, we explored it, and she didn't give it to me right away. We had a very in-depth conversation about it, or maybe two, and she checks with me every month to see how I'm doing, and it's been a good, productive little ADHD journey, and it has helped me tremendously.
Just don't suffer in silence. I think that's it. Let's continue the conversation of talking. And I love that that's why you've done this, is if someone can learn something like, oh, I am having these symptoms, who can I talk to about it? Just don't suffer in silence. There's so many avenues that you can go down and explore them, and don't be attached. If one doesn't work, then try another one.
Right. Well, thank you very much for coming on to talk with me today. I think what you're doing is so valued, especially because it's kind of, when it comes to adult ADHD and these conversations with women as it relates to perimenopause and menopause, it's kind of a new frontier. And because it's a new frontier, women can feel alone. So tell everyone how they can find you on social media and what they can expect when they do find you.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and newly on TikTok, and Cassie Blakely 17 is my handle. And then on there I have my website and how you can contact me, email, DM, all of the things, and just reach out. And I'm pretty responsive. And like I said, if I'm not your person, I will direct you to who I think would be great.
That's wonderful. Well, this was terrific. Thank you so much. And now I need to go finish that book, because that is one of the things about ADHD. You start things and then sometimes you don't finish them. So I need to finish reading the ADHD is Awesome book. And then when, I think you might have already finished it. So when I finish, we should have a little private call, because I want to talk to you about it. That'll be fun.
I would love that.
Okay. Well, thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Bye, Cassie. So you can just put together whatever ingredients list for the plan that feels right for that particular person.
And that's why I like to know before.
If you're navigating ADHD
that's like
in a
how
world where
I want
there's
to know
so much
before, and
information
why I like to
online,
do a
and
call.
where symptoms
Okay,
can
tell
look
me where
completely
your stuff
different
is, and
depending
I'll
on
tell
age,
you if
mental
if
health,
I'm
and
your
personal
person.
patterns.
I do have
it can
a
feel
lot
overwhelming
of
to know what
families
actually
and
applies
young
to you.
adults that are like,
That's where having someone
am
like Cassie Blakely in your
zero.
corner
I
can
will
make
not do
such a
medication.
difference.
If you
Someone
feel
who
this
helps
way,
you sort
that's
through
not
the
okay.
noise,
I have others who are
tailor
like,
an approach
hey,
that's personal and
they
realistic,
start and they're like,
and
no
reminds you
medication,
that
and they're like,
understanding
I think it's
ADHD,
time.
whether in
And so I like
yourself
to help
or
families
others,
figure
starts
that
with
out.
empathy.
Is it time?
What
I start to
fascinates me
ask
most about Cassie
questions.
is her
Is the
compassion and her
child's
curiosity.
personality?
She is
Is your
constantly
personality
learning,
changing?
evolving,
Are you,
and meeting
and
people
just
exactly
asking
where they are.
questions
And in a
so
space
that they
that's
can see
anything
things
but
like,
one
it
size
might
fits
be
all,
time.
that
So
kind of thoughtful guidance is
I
truly
love to just
invaluable.
do that call initially to see if we're a good fit. But I have families and young adults that feel very strongly one way or the other, and I want to lead them in. I'm not here to put my values on it. I want to lead them the way that's right for them.
I guess I have one last question, because we have our laptops and our phones and our iPads, and now everything's available to stream. There are documentaries. There's so much information everywhere. And that in itself can feel very overwhelming. Do you have any words of wisdom on how to parse through all of that so that you just don't end up being on overload when it comes to, okay, I'm ready to start researching. Where do you like people to begin? And do you have any philosophies on how to process all of that?
Yeah, it's so personalized. I just had to tell a client to get off social media regarding menopause because they were trying too many things and it was making it worse. I think that's the hard part is there's too much information. It's not personalized. And
Yes.
so we're trying a lot of different things, and that's not always helpful. So that's really my philosophy, is one thing at a time, especially because our body is changing so much, especially with our hormones.
Yes.
And I really like to say, go to a trusted doctor that you already have an established relationship with, and talk about, hey, I'm feeling this way. It feels different for me. These are my symptoms. I'm not feeling like myself. I know for me, I all of a sudden overnight was like, I don't feel like myself.
Yeah.
Something's going on. I am more anxious than I've ever been. My ADHD symptoms are showing up even more. I'm feeling a little more depressed. My body is changing. So I went first to a doctor, and that's what that I already had an established relationship with.
Yes.
Or ask a friend who you know, or
Yeah.
someone in that you trust. Say, hey, have you had these symptoms? Do you have someone? Because I
Yes.
really think a doctor, or it can be anyone that you really trust, and tell them about your symptoms.
I think it's a really good suggestion. And then from there, let's say the doctor says to you, okay, why don't we try X or Y or Z? And then you've got some guidelines on kind of where to begin and do your own research. And then you can certainly go back for another conversation. That's what doctors are there for. And that's what the whole self-advocacy piece is. I think we shouldn't feel like we have to keep it to ourselves or brush it off as, oh, you're just a woman, it's just menopause. There are things that can be done. I've noticed a big change in myself. I started taking basically a kindergartner's dose of a drug called Vyvanse, and it helps me with focus. It feels like a couple of cups of tea, and I feel focused, but I don't feel jittery. It doesn't affect my appetite. For me, that has worked. I am not shy about telling people that I take a focus medication. And I'm not saying that people should do that, but it was something that I went to the doctor, we explored it, and she didn't give it to me right away. We had a very in-depth conversation about it, or maybe two, and she checks with me every month to see how I'm doing, and it's been a good, productive little ADHD journey, and it has helped me tremendously.
Just don't suffer in silence. I think that's it. Let's continue the conversation of talking. And I love that that's why you've done this, is if someone can learn something like, oh, I am having these symptoms, who can I talk to about it? Just don't suffer in silence. There's so many avenues that you can go down, and explore them, and don't be attached. If one doesn't work, then try another one.
Right, right. Well, thank you very much for coming on to talk with me today. I think what you're doing is so valued, especially because it's kind of, when it comes to adult ADHD and these conversations with women as it relates to perimenopause and menopause, it's kind of a new frontier. And because it's new frontier, women can feel alone. So tell everyone how they can find you on social media, and what they can expect when they do find you.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and newly on TikTok, and Cassie Blakely 17 is my handle. And then on there I have my website and how you can contact me, email, DM, all of the things, and just reach out. And I'm pretty responsive. And like I said, if I'm not your person, I will direct you to who I think would be great.
That's wonderful. Well, this was terrific. Thank you so much. And now I need to go finish that book, because that is one of the things about ADHD. You start things and then sometimes you don't finish them. So I need to finish reading the ADHD is Awesome book. And then when, I think you might have already finished it. So when I finish, we should have a little private call, because I want to talk to you about it. That'll be fun.
I would love that.
Okay. Well, thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Bye, Cassie.
If you're navigating ADHD in a world where there's so much information online, and where symptoms can look completely different depending on age, mental health, and personal patterns, it can feel overwhelming to know what actually applies to you. That's where having someone like Cassie Blakely in your corner can make such a difference. Someone who helps you sort through the noise, tailor an approach that's personal and realistic, and reminds you that understanding ADHD, whether in yourself or others, starts with empathy. What fascinates me most about Cassie is her compassion and her curiosity. She is constantly learning, evolving, and meeting people exactly where they are. And in a space that's anything but one size fits all, that kind of thoughtful guidance is truly invaluable. I'm glad you're still here, and the fact that you are, watching or listening all the way to the end, means you gave me a chance. This is a new podcast, and it was a big leap to create this for you, something real, thoughtful, and meaningful. We live in one of the most networked societies in history, but somehow we've become the least connected. That's the magic of She Fascinates Me, bringing together real women, real stories, and the quiet alchemy of change. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe wherever you watch or listen, and take a moment to leave a quick rating or review. It really helps more people find the show, and it makes it possible for me to keep bringing you conversations like this one. And connect with me on social at She Fascinates Me. Every follow, share, and kind word helps this community of fascinating women grow. I'm so glad we're connected now.